All right. Oh, guess I should do an audio test. Oh, there we go. Everything's working. Yeah, way to go, Chris. Gotta do those pre-show flight things. Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to another Drupal and Coffee in the Morning. Looks like today I'm flying solo. Um, I just wanted to touch base with everybody and have a post Drupalcon Austin recap show. I know it's been a while. It's been about a month, has it been, since Drupalcon Portland? But it was such a phenomenal experience that I just had to get together and talk about everything I went through in order to be at that event. Um, the I was there for an entire week, and this is the very first time I've been to a DrupalCon where I was there for an entire week. A lot of the times that I've been to DrupalCon, it's really just been for the event, like the 3 days that the conference goes on. After doing that a couple of times, I found out that there were events that were happening before and after the con. There were people getting together, and they were developing Drupal core, and that seemed to be a very great opportunity to, find out information from the people who have been working on core a lot and know more about the internals of the system and just basically learn more. So this year I set out to be there for the entire event, everything that was happening before and after the con. So yeah, I rolled in there a couple days early. I also did something unique this year. I did an Airbnb instead of rent space out in the hotel, and that proved out to be really great. Ultimately, I didn't save a lot of money, but I was able to share a space with 7 other people and be able to, feel like less alone in that way. Space was a bit cramped, but we were able to have a series of air mattresses, and everyone was able to have a good sleeping space for the duration of the event. We weren't in the hotel a lot anyways. So this show I'm calling a shout-out show, and here's where the shout-outs start. So I want to thank Forrest, Larry, Doug, Brian, Ryan, Sam, and Hans for sharing a space with me for a week. I also want to give a shout-out to our rental property owner, Yuri. If you're ever watching this, you were awesome that week. You were able to make the entire experience great for us. And more shout-outs are to come, but more like a timeline of the event of being at Drupalcon Austin. For me, the conference started off with getting together with a few developers before the conference and just trying to sprint on core. I kind of rolled in there late on a Sunday, and most of the sprinters were already having a half day of development in on that Sunday. And I was able to jump in, and immediately I met Jess, if you know core development, XJM, Jess, she's amazing. And I also met Kathy Face, and they immediately put me to the task of writing some documentation and helping try out issues for the upcoming core sprint at the end of the conference. So it's great to just fly in, get to the event, and immediately feel that you're being effective. Also, funny story, I left my phone at home. I got a ride to the airport, and I left my phone in my wife's car. And for the first couple of days at the conference, this is the only gizmo that I had available to me to try to capture the moments. Google Glass was very effective of being able to take pictures when my phone wasn't available, and I was very thankful that I was able to catalog those moments. It did spark a lot of questions from people who were trying, maybe it was their very first time of seeing glass, or maybe they were just genuinely freaked out by the fact that, hey, I'm walking around with a camera pointing everywhere. I get it. But I did have to practice my answers of to the questions. Are you recording me? How's that thing working out for you? What does that do? Just general questions, but it was kind of interesting to see how the exact wording to questions came up over and over again, and you know, it was at the end. I was kind of felt bad because I felt like just by wearing this thing, I was kind of socially ostracizing myself amongst my friends. You know, the people in the Drupal community I consider friends, and I didn't want anyone to feel off-put. But I don't think anybody but Jeff Eaton was upset that I was wearing it. So, Jeff, if you're watching this, how you doing? No, and we'll get to the more Jeff Eaton bits near the end. So there was on Monday, I was able to take part in some training that was offered by Blink Reaction. A good friend of mine, Jesus Olivas, you may know him as Jesus Manuel Olivas. He's the creator of the Drupal 8 scaffold module that we'll probably be using a lot in about a year's time in order to speed the everyday development of creating things for Drupal 8. I found out that he was hired by Blink Reaction, and I was already interested in the training, but as soon as I heard that he was attached to the training, that was it for me. I was able to find the funds to buy the training and to take part. It was great. It was a tour of Symfony development. You know, for me, I've already done internal training on Symfony, so those parts weren't as interesting for me as being able to walk through the internals of Jesus's module and being able to understand, you know, how that whole system is based upon Symfony's console component. And if you understood Symfony's console component, even outside of the context of working on Drupal development, you could extend it. And that reality is very exciting because it already does a set of very valuable functional things. But to know that that list of things that it can create for you and generate for you can grow over time, and that process won't be any different than if you were already comfortable creating generators for other parts of Symfony. It's very exciting. But it turns out that the Symfony parts was a bit of training delivered by Ryan Weaver, who is the Symfony documentation maintainer. So being able to get Symfony training from the person who's largely responsible for writing the Symfony documentation was very valuable. To get his perspective, there wasn't a question that anyone was able to ask that could stump the guy. He was on his game. It's all very good. And then the next day, the first day of the conference, was funny because you know, here I am sitting in like the second row of Dries' keynote, and he's like making fun of Google Glass, and here I am like wearing Google Glass right there. It's like I think I was sitting next to somebody, and they were saying, "Oh, they're getting called out." Yeah, that's how it goes. The conference convention center is huge. It looks like it could certainly handle the larger conferences that come in there. And we were able to make good use of the floor space for all the convention spots. When a convention like Drupalcon comes in, it's comfortable to know that all of the sessions are going to be recorded. So out there on YouTube, there's about a week's worth of video that you can peruse and learn from. What isn't recorded are the birds of a feather sessions. And so this year, despite the fact that I really wanted to go to a number of sessions, I kind of forced myself to go to the BOFs instead. And one of the first BOFs that I went to was my own. I was able to create a birds of a feather session for the Google Plus community. And there were a handful of people that showed up. You may have seen the picture that I shared to the Google Plus community of all the people that showed up. I think it was a total of 5. So thank you, Geraldo, Ross, Mike, Donnie. I know there are others that came. And just we got together. We talked about how the Google Plus community got started, what people are looking for, any kind of changes that people want. Next year, we'll do a better job of trying to make this an event that's on people's calendar, and if we're able to either make a recording of it or do a Hangout on Air. We probably could have accomplished the Hangout on Air, but it just seemed unlikely and implausible that at a convention you could have enough bandwidth to do a Hangout on Air. But as I found out later in the week, it was certainly possible. So a missed opportunity there, but we'll try to fix that next year. A number of memorable talks now that it's a month later. Things that are still memorable to me was going to the Birds of a Feather session for eager, which I know everyone pronounces differently. I've pronounced it Ager or Ager, but it's eager. And there were 2 developers leading that BOF, John Pugh and Christopher Gervais, who have worked on DevShop and eager respectively. DevShop and eager are 2 approaches of, and they share a lot of technology and code, but there are 2 approaches to use Drupal to be a site management tool, a tool that helps you spin up new instances of Drupal. And it was very effective. Looking into its internals and extending it right now, it seems to be it provides its own API, and so it's based on Drupal's API. And it looks to be a lot of fun. A number of people who I've talked to who went to Jeff Eaton's talk, Battle for the Body Field, came away just really, really interested, and the conversation just flowed outside of that talk. It was supposed to be like a 1-hour talk or a 2-hour talk or something like that, and it ended up being a lot longer because people stayed after and talked about it a lot. Jeff Eaton recently wrote a blog post that was also titled Battle for the Body Field on List Apart. I was trying to remember where. And his talk was a very consumable kind of look into that blog post and to talk about how content management systems in general have a problem with how they manage the content that's going to be on the page. And he does a much better job of talking about it, so I won't attempt to rehash that in a few minutes I have here. I don't want to forget the #1 talk that I went to was the keynote that was given by Erin Peterson. It was the second day of the convention, and she was talking about, diversity in software development communities. And one of the things that really struck me was that she thought that Drupal had a really good mix, a really diverse community, and that her message to us was to make efforts to maintain the level of diversity that we have. And that she researched a lot of other communities, not just software development communities, but she did research in different communities and found that there isn't that level of diversity, and when there isn't, it's very difficult to achieve that level because the community actively tried to keep the the community homogeneous. Um, I don't know. I'm not doing a very good job of representing the talk. Go and find it. Erin Peterson, Drupalcon keynote. It was a great talk. She had a lot of data, and I always love to hear data-driven talks. And one of the talks I was really looking forward to and did not disappoint was Helior's talk. Helior is his Drupal username. I believe his first name is Hector. Gave about the plugin system. He did a deep dive into the plugin system. And I remember coming into the convention, I was very firm in the opinion that when we're doing Drupal 8 development, like a year from now, 2 years from now, when Drupal 8 is our daily driver, that the majority of things that we'll develop that extends the system will be plugins. And thanks to the training that I took from Blink Reaction, I left the conference thinking that, yes, absolutely, plugins are going to be a very important thing to know and something that we'll do on a daily basis. But beyond that, just creating Symfony services will also be important. Bits of code that can be reused, even outside of the context of Drupal. That's really what we're talking about. But Helior gave the talk previously, and I was able to find it on YouTube a while back, but this version of the talk went pretty deep as well. I don't think the audience was really up to the task of the level of specificity Hector goes to when he does his talks, but I loved it. Being able to understand how to create plugins, not just plugins, but plugin managers is going to be really important. So if you're looking for that talk, go find that talk too. And there were lots of other great talks that even now I haven't been able to see. Looking forward to seeing a talk that went deep into the caching system. I think, yes, Larry Garfield did a talk about functional PHP. There was a core conversation about web components. And if you've followed the stuff I've posted over the last year, you'll probably know I'm pretty excited about the concept about web components. And that kind of led into kind of like a spur-of-the-moment meeting with a number of developers that are all interested in the idea of headless Drupal, the ability to create something with Drupal without having to deal with Drupal. Just use Drupal as a container of data, and then use techniques like Angular.js or JavaScript-driven development and web services in order to get the data out of Drupal and make your application on top. That's pretty exciting for me, you know. And people know that last year in Drupal Camp Twin Cities, I gave a talk about web components, and so that's kind of the reason why I found out about it. They wanted to, you know, hear about what are some opinions from that perspective. But I was able to find out that oh yeah, there was a talk given by Carl. I'm sorry, blanking on your last name. But he has done a lot of work with Twig in the past, and did a lot of work trying to figure out, well, how do we really get the data from Drupal through web services? Because Drupal does a lot of manipulation of data. There's a lot of alter layers. There are a lot of things that manipulate structures before they are actually rendered. So how do we get the web service to be able to have that level of intelligence? And he was showing some code that basically proved that out, that using the same kind of scoping that we have in Twig to try to zero in into a specific value of a variable given to it by an object, that can be accomplished through web services. And the whole idea is pretty exciting, because if you're if you have a Drupal project and you know that even if you don't have any front-end developers that know Twig or Drupal at all, you can get it. You can make it work because you can get the data out, and then the front-enders can do whatever they want with it. They render it with handlebars. They can render it with web components. They can render it with Angular.js, whatever. But the key part of that enables all that happening is to have a reliable web service that you know you can get the bits of data out that you want. So 9 minutes left, and oh my gosh, shout-outs. I have lots of shout-outs. First off, one of the last days of the conference, we had the legendary trivia night, and I'm happy to report that my trivia team got 3rd place. And I will give another shout-out later because I had written down all the names of everyone I wanted to give a shout-out to for my trivia team, but I don't have that with me right now. Sorry about that. But what is a DrupalCon without parties? I was able to create a hangout that we fully loaded. We found out that there is a maximum number of people you can add to a hangout, and it's 99. Maybe it's 100, including yourself. But yeah, we hit the limit, kind of like on the 2nd day. But I was able, with that tool, was able to find out where consistently a good crew of people was, and I ended up spending a lot of time hanging out with Kelly Obrecht, Richard Allen, Mai Ari, Elijah Lynn, Edwin Rogers, Scott Rigby, Jeff Markle, and there's a whole host of others. Doug Van's an awesome person if you've ever met him at any of the camps, and chances are, given the number of camps he's been at, you've probably met him. And I don't know if Doug, I gave you a shout out for Airbnb. Yeah. Thanks a lot for being a good friend this week, or that week. But also, okay, not running out of time yet. Training Day. Training Day is a phenomenon when it comes to Drupal Camp, and that's largely because of the efforts of Kathy Face, Andrea Sober, a whole slew of mentors that signed up saying that, yes, I will be available to mentor you. And frankly, also Bluehost. A representative of Bluehost was able to sponsor the meals and the coffee. You know how important coffee is for development. Yeah, and they were really there to make sure that all happened. And good for you, Bluehost. But also Brian Gilbert, you may know him as Reality Loop. There was a fundraising campaign to make sure he could attend. He brought with him a number of tools that made it easier for people to get ramped up and started. I also want to give a special shout out to Tess Flynn, who I was happy to participate in a fundraiser to make sure that she could make Drupalcon Austin as well. And we had a great time. You know, we were basically ushers. We were ushering people to the proper places. And if you met me at Drupalcon Austin, yes, I was that guy that was yelling very loudly and very energetic that day when everyone was probably really tired after a series of nights where they were filled with parties. So, not sorry about that. Also want to give a shout out to Ryan Sarama for calling attention to his buddy who was having a birthday that day. Yeah, it was a very good moment, getting the entire room to sing happy birthday to a Drupal dev. And Jess, again, XJM, for, you know, there was a moment I was ushering people. I had a job. I was ushering people to different places where they were going to be getting into core development, and then just stopped by to make sure that somebody was there over in the the main core sprint where the core developers were, and they were just heads down coding. So she came all the way out and made sure that somebody was there to make sure that when people were stopped by the room, they didn't bug her, and to get to find out where they needed to go, even though there was a sign up in front with a diagram showing where everyone was, what part of the rooms were working on what. So it was fun. And it was a fun week. After the con, there were additional days of sprinting. I took part of that. I met Bart. We had this funny moment where we were talking to each other, and we found out that actually we had been talking for months before the con on specific issues, but because Drupal has this pseudo-anonymity thing, people don't know I'm Cosmic Dreams. I didn't know his username. And also, I had a wonderful time having dinner with a number of developers from South America and Puerto Rico. Geraldo and Jesus and Fernando and Carlos. And let me look at the... One second, let me look at... and Daryl from Puerto Rico. Had a wonderful time being introduced to authentic Colombian food and authentic Colombian fruit drinks. It was an experience for me. I don't get that many opportunities to have a tour of what is really good authentic food from people who really know. So thank you for that. And then with 2 minutes left, there were so many other shout-outs that I want to give to people who I met, and the entire experience of being at Drupalcon. For me, it's the one big event of the year that I go to. And I go there with the expectation that I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be amongst friends, I'm going to be able to talk about technology. I can be myself, I can nerd out about Drupal, and no one's going to laugh. Everyone gets it. So I guess I want to give a shout out to everybody who was at Drupalcon. There were 3,500 people at this year's Drupalcon. And last year there was about 3,000 people. So the event is growing at a fast pace. And next year, Drupalcon will be in Los Angeles. And I'm really looking forward to going to Los Angeles. I've never been that far west. And I'm looking forward to another great con. So that's where we leave it tonight. Maybe in the following weeks, I can schedule a couple shows with a number of people that I've met during the con. And there were a number of times I met somebody and it's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea for a show. Let's get together. So we'll see if we can book up a series of talks for the next coming week. I won't be in next week. I'm going to be traveling with my family. But in the coming weeks, we'll see if we can put together some more shows. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good day.